I'm a 26-year-old originally from a small town in Ohio, now residing in the sunny city of San Diego. Life was on track until I found myself urgently in need of a new roommate. That's when I crossed paths with Jane, a 23-year-old from Florida, also new to the city. I stumbled upon her while browsing through countless Craigslist ads. Intrigued by her unique personality, I took a chance, thinking her eccentricity could add some excitement to my life. Little did I know, this decision would plunge me into an ongoing nightmare. Jane came over to our apartment, and it quickly became apparent that she had an odd demeanor. She seemed to disregard personal boundaries in a manner that was uncanny. She'd freely explore my refrigerator and consume my food without even asking. What was worse, she saw no issue using my laptop in my absence, spending hours on end on plentyoffish.com with no regard for my privacy. To add to the frustration, she burst into my room at inconvenient moments, spouting nonsensical things. This happened within the very first week of her arrival. As time passed, Jane's peculiar behavior only grew more bizarre. She started hanging out with a questionable crowd she'd met at her job in Subway. This group included her recently released from prison boyfriend and his 4 friends. They weren't genuinely interested in Jane. They simply found amusement in her innocence and willingness to make purchases for them. Her eccentric actions worsened in their presence as she sought their approval and attention incessantly. One of Jane's habits that irked me the most was her tendency to leave the windows slightly open. She attributed this to constantly losing her keys. Little did I know that this reckless habit would lead to a distressing turn of events, making me feel unsafe in my own home. One day, I returned to find my apartment in shambles. My TV, laptop, my roommate's smaller TV, a wedding dress I was selling on eBay for my aunt, a stack of DVDs, and even my prescription glasses were all gone. In a state of panic, I immediately called Jane, who had just returned home herself. Instead of showing concern, she accused me of stealing her damaged laptop and promptly called the police on me. The situation deteriorated further when the police arrived. Amidst my increasing frustration, I recounted the ordeal. Despite her friends benefiting from her negligence regarding the unlocked window, Jane's manipulation of the situation was astonishing. To my relief, the police saw through her facade swiftly. They cautioned me against using Craigslist for finding roommates due to recognizing her instability. They documented the stolen items and left me to deal with the aftermath. Filled with anger and a sense of betrayal, I confronted Jane, venting my frustration. Just as I reached my breaking point, the police unexpectedly entered. Worried that matters were escalating, I was relieved to find out that they were already aware of the situation. They acknowledged my grievances and understood the manipulation at play. After noting the stolen goods, they left after a brief interaction with Jane. Determined to regain my belongings, I devised a makeshift plan. I fabricated a story to the burglars about hidden cameras in the apartment. I threatened to withhold the footage from the police unless they returned my stolen items. Surprisingly, my bluff worked, and I managed to retrieve my belongings without further police involvement, relying solely on my determination. Though a harrowing experience, it taught me a valuable lesson. Caution should prevail when seeking roommates on Craigslist. I promptly took Jane's key, gathered her belongings into a single box, and left it outside the apartment. While it was sad to part ways, I vowed to prioritize my safety and heed warning signs in the future. If you ever find yourself in a similar situation, exercise prudence, especially when using Craigslist to find a roommate. Not everyone is as they appear, and sometimes genuine horrors lurk behind seemingly trustworthy online advertisements, just around the corner. In my 30s, hailing from a small town, I've encountered a fair share of unsettling episodes on Craigslist. One incident, in particular, stands out. An attempt to sell a used TV turned into a chilling experience that still sends shivers down my spine. I listed a simple entertainment center on the website, hoping it might catch someone's interest. Little did I know that this innocent endeavor would lead to something quite horrifying. A woman messaged me, seemingly eager about the entertainment hub. After exchanging a few messages, we arranged a visit at 7 o'clock. The plan seemed straightforward. I readied everything for her arrival and eagerly awaited the appointed time. However, 7 o'clock came and went, and she was nowhere to be seen. Puzzled, I reached out via text to confirm her intentions. Hours later, just as I was about to give up, she responded with apologies and a request to come by. Despite the late hour, it was already 10 p.m. I decided to give it a shot since I'm a night owl. Her promised 10-minute arrival stretched into 20, leaving me torn between curiosity and skepticism. As I approached the front door, my heart raced with a mix of anticipation and caution. To my surprise, not only was the woman in my driveway, but her car also carried 4 or 5 additional occupants. My mind raced to grasp the situation. Something felt off about this group accompanying her for a simple TV inspection. Suppressing my unease, I battled the urge to question the circumstances. Just as I was contemplating, a new text arrived, claiming she was right outside. With a blend of curiosity and wariness, I ventured to the front door. The sight that met my eyes was unsettling. Not only was she there, but her companions too. A knot formed in my stomach. The plan of having strangers entering my home was certainly not part of my expectations. Her casual explanation that they all wanted to see the entertainment center only fueled my concern. Politely but firmly, I conveyed that only she was welcome to enter. Despite her insistence and the appeal for a second opinion, I held my ground. Her demeanor shifted from calm to anger, accusing me of not fulfilling my Christian responsibilities. However, I knew that putting myself in potential danger was not aligned with those beliefs. With my unease intensifying, I secured all entry points and retreated inside my house. My heart raced as I kept an eye on the scene outside. One of her companions chose an odd spot to relieve himself, adding to the surreal and unsettling atmosphere. It felt like a scene straight out of a horror film. Eventually, they piled back into the car and screeched away into the night, like an abrupt ending to a nightmare. I could hardly believe it. The nightmare had dissipated. The thought of what might have transpired had I allowed them inside sent shudders down my spine. This harrowing experience taught me a valuable lesson about dealing with strangers on Craigslist. Moving forward, I vowed to exercise utmost caution and rely on my instincts. In the digital shadows of the online world, you can never truly know who lurks on the other side of the screen. So, if you ever find yourself selling something on Craigslist, remember my story. Be cautious, establish boundaries, and don't succumb to pressure that compromises your safety. It's better to be labeled overly cautious than to find yourself trapped in a real-life horror tale. I hail from a quaint town and recently transplanted myself to the bustling expanse of the big city. With my transition into urban life, I opted to part ways with my car, a dependable Honda Accord that had accompanied me through numerous positive experiences over its 6-year lifespan. Feeling that the metropolis had rendered the car unnecessary, I took the step to put it up for sale. This process involved listing it on Craigslist. In short order, I was contacted by a seemingly ordinary and well-dressed individual named Mark. He presented himself as being in his early 40s and explained that he intended to purchase the vehicle for his daughter, who was heading to college. Our interactions, primarily conducted over the phone, conveyed a sense of propriety and legitimacy. My anticipation was cautiously optimistic when Mark arrived for a test drive. Meeting in person, Mark projected an approachable demeanor, displaying genuine curiosity about the car. As we ventured out for a drive, he meticulously inspected every nook and cranny. After some negotiation on the price, we ultimately reached an agreement. Mark assured me of his exclusive interest in the car and requested a 2-day hold to finalize the necessary arrangements. When the 2 days had elapsed, we met again in a familiar neighborhood during broad daylight. Mark's amiability put me at ease, as he exuded the same friendly demeanor. The pivotal moment came after our final test drive. To cement the deal, Mark presented a cashier's check from Chase Bank, a reputable financial institution. Although I suggested a trip to the bank together for check verification and title transfer, I believed everything was proceeding as planned. Yet, a shift occurred in Mark's behavior at this juncture. His demeanor became noticeably hesitant and anxious. While discussing the bank visit, we parked on the side of my street. I attempted to reassure myself that if Mark intended to steal a car, he would have already done so, prompting me to lower my guard. Despite my resolve to conclude the transaction at the bank, Mark requested another inspection before heading there, and I reluctantly agreed. Unexpectedly, Mark swiftly reoccupied the driver's seat and accelerated as we both exited the car for another look. He sped away, leaving the passenger door ajar as the vehicle surged forward. Panic surged through me as futile attempts to pursue him played out. In desperation, I implored onlookers to call 911, realizing I stood no chance of overtaking a speeding car. While recounting the incident to the dispatcher, a good Samaritan made the emergency call. Within a short distance, a hidden police car containing 2 officers emerged from an alley in response to my frantic signals. I waved them down, detailing the terrifying experience I had just endured. Acting on their instructions, I instinctively got into the back of their car, mirroring their actions. My heart pleaded for swift action to apprehend the criminal who had taken my cherished car. In an effort to aid the investigation and locate my stolen vehicle, I provided the officers with every piece of information I could recall: make, model, license plate, and more. While the officers assured me they wouldn't initiate a high-speed chase with me in the car, they'd promptly summoned backup from nearby units. Regrettably, the perpetrator managed to evade capture, leading to my being dropped off at the police station to file a report. Amid processing my insurance claim, I found myself wrestling with frustration and self-directed anger, worried about potential accusations of fraud. After a trying 3-month period, the police delivered unexpected news. My car had been discovered 3 states away, just as I was on the brink of receiving compensation. Evidently, Mark had collaborated with an accomplice, whom we'll refer to as Dickface for brevity. Mark, in an effort to avoid detection, pilfered my car and handed it over to Dickface for a quick sale. However, Dickface unwittingly managed to sell the car to an unsuspecting individual who believed he was buying a vehicle for his college-bound daughter. When this buyer attempted to register the car, its stolen status triggered a series of unfortunate events. As a result, the police arranged for Joe, Dickface, and me to convene at the station. Dickface, keen to evade trouble, agreed to reimburse Joe for the money he had received for the car, even though he disavowed any connection to Mark. In an unforeseen twist, we collectively decided that Joe's daughter could keep the car, while I accepted Dickface's refund. Eventually, I did receive compensation for my car, but the entire ordeal left me feeling stressed and demoralized. Despite this challenging experience, I continued to engage in buying and selling cars via Craigslist. While I seemingly hadn't heeded the lesson, I now take the precaution of photographing applicants' driver's licenses at the outset of each meeting.